When someone is overwhelmed with feelings, it often slips out in ways that feel invisible on the surface, but are profoundly telling when you look closer. One of the strongest signs is the subtle art of reflection, where words, gestures, and rhythms begin to overlap in a way that feels almost accidental. Imagine speaking in your natural tone and suddenly hearing it echoed back, not in a mocking way, but in a softened form that aligns with your own. It's the psychology of closeness, where the subconscious mind begins to mirror the person it's drawn to. This is not deliberate or planned. It happens without thought, without effort, as though the brain is whispering, "I want to be in sync with you." You may notice it when your expressions are reflected, when you lean in during a conversation and so does the other, or when laughter begins to match in timing and pitch. It can be something as small as sipping from a glass right after you do, or folding arms at the same moment, or picking up a phrase you often say and weaving it into their own sentences. It creates a rhythm, a subtle duet where both sides are performing the same melody without realizing it. And what makes it so powerful is that it doesn't have to be noticed consciously for it to work. The connection deepens simply by existing in that mirrored space. The reason behind this lies in human psychology. Mirroring is tied to what are called mirror neurons in the brain, which fire not only when we act, but when we observe someone else performing the same action. When attraction heightens, those neurons become more active, almost compelling the body to align with the one it is drawn to. It is the brain's natural way of saying, "I want to understand you. I want to be close to you. I want to exist on your wavelength." It transforms ordinary interactions into something that feels strangely intimate, because deep down, similarity breeds trust. Think of how comfortable it feels when someone gets your humor, when they laugh exactly where you do, or when they nod in perfect timing as if they already know your thoughts. That is the emotional impact of mirroring. It dissolves distance. You begin to feel as though the person standing in front of you isn't just listening, but experiencing life with you in real time. It's a psychological trick, but it isn't manipulative. It's simply the natural language of someone who is absorbed by you, someone who wants the connection to remain unbroken. What makes it even more striking is the contrast. They may not mirror anyone else in the same way, not consciously, not with such consistency. But with you, it happens over and over, small signals layering into something undeniable. The reflection is a confession without words, a silent way of saying, "I'm drawn to you so much that even my body betrays it." There is a kind of focus that feels different from ordinary attention, a weight that lingers in the air when someone is deeply captivated. You can sense it in the way eyes refuse to wander, in the way conversations hold an intensity that feels almost magnetic. This isn't the casual interest of someone half present, half scrolling through their thoughts. This is selective attention, the mind narrowing down its entire field of awareness until only one person remains at the center. When emotions are heightened, distractions lose their power. The phone buzzing, the voices in the background, the tasks waiting elsewhere, all of it fades into a blur. What stays sharp, vivid, and almost exaggerated is you. It's not always grand or obvious. Sometimes it's in the way questions are asked, not as fillers of silence, but as genuine attempts to understand. Each word you say seems to carry weight, as though it belongs in a collection, something to be remembered and revisited later. The smallest details, things you don't expect anyone to notice, suddenly matter. You mention a preference, a dream, even something as small as your favorite drink, and weeks later it resurfaces, brought up casually but with precision, showing that the attention you were given was not temporary but carefully stored. Psychology explains this as the brain's natural response when attraction runs deep. Our minds are wired to prioritize what matters most to us. When someone becomes a source of fascination, the brain essentially marks them as high value, and all energy is directed toward them. The focus feels effortless, but it is in fact the result of deep emotional investment. That's why conversations feel longer yet shorter at the same time. Longer because every moment is savored, shorter because time disappears in the process. This is the paradox of selective attention. It stretches and compresses time depending on how strongly emotions are involved. There's also a sense of presence that comes with it. You may notice a kind of stillness in the other person, as though their body language says, "I'm not going anywhere." The posture leans towards you, the eyes remain locked, nods come at the right moment, and even the silences are shared rather than awkward. It is not the silence of boredom but of immersion, the quiet that exists when words are unnecessary because the attention is already loud enough. This kind of focus is rare in today's world, where distractions constantly pull people in different directions. That rarity makes it stand out even more. To be the one who silences the noise in someone's mind, even briefly, is a kind of unspoken compliment, a psychological declaration that says, right now, nothing is more important than you. It's not performed, it's not forced, it simply happens because the emotional pull is stronger than any competing thought. And once you've felt it, once you've been on the receiving end of such undivided energy, it's impossible to mistake it for anything less than the raw sign of someone who is utterly captivated. There is a playful edge that slips into conversations when emotions are running high, a gentle pushing and pulling that feels like a game but carries deeper meaning. It shows up in teasing remarks, in small challenges, in questions designed to see how you'll respond. This is the psychology of testing boundaries, a way of measuring the space between comfort and vulnerability. On the surface, it might look lighthearted, like a casual joke or a daring suggestion, but beneath it lies a search for reassurance. It's the subconscious attempt to learn, how far can I go with you? How much of myself can I show without being turned away? These little tests are rarely cruel. They're more like tapping on the walls of a room, checking where the structure is solid and where it might open up. Sometimes it's a tease about your habits. Sometimes it's a challenge to your opinion, and sometimes it's an invitation to step outside your usual comfort zone. Each move is carefully watched because the response matters more than the act itself. A laugh signals warmth, a smile signals openness, and even a playful pushback creates energy. In fact, resistance can be just as attractive as agreement. It shows there is life in the connection, spark in the interaction. From a psychological perspective, this behavior stems from the human need to create intimacy through tension. When two people only ever agree, things can become flat, predictable, almost too safe. But when boundaries are nudged, when there is a little friction, emotions heighten. The adrenaline of playfulness mimics the adrenaline of attraction, blurring the lines between fun and desire. It keeps the dynamic alive, unpredictable, and charged with something more than polite conversation. It is also about trust. By testing a boundary, someone reveals a part of themselves that could be rejected even if it's in a small way. For instance, making a joke risks the chance it might not land. Teasing risks the chance it might be taken the wrong way. But by taking that risk, they are saying, I want to know if you'll still stay. Every successful test, every moment where the line is nudged but not broken, creates a stronger sense of safety. It reassures them that this bond is not fragile, that it can hold playfulness, vulnerability, and honesty without crumbling. What makes these tests so revealing is how specific they often become. They're not generic or random, they're tailored to you. It could be a joke about something you mentioned before, or a playful exaggeration of your quirks. That specificity shows attentiveness, a deep noticing of details, and a desire to create private little worlds of humor or challenge that only the two of you share. These moments form a language of their own, where even the teasing becomes a kind of affection, a way of saying, I see you closely enough to play with who you are. And though it may feel small in the moment, these interactions often leave a mark. Long after the words fade, the memory of that playful tension lingers, because it wasn't about the joke or the challenge, it was about the hidden meaning behind it, a test disguised as laughter, a question disguised as fun, an unspoken way of asking, can I step closer? And will you let me stay? It often begins quietly, almost unnoticed, the way someone starts to position themselves just a little closer, the way their eyes linger a moment longer when others enter the room. There is no declaration, no loud claim, yet the energy shifts. This is subtle possessiveness, not the harsh kind that seeks control, but the softer, instinctive pull to protect what feels deeply valued. It shows in small, almost invisible acts that speak louder than words, standing between you and the crowd, offering a hand before you even think to ask, scanning the environment with a kind of unspoken guard. These gestures aren't planned, they're pulled from something primal, a natural instinct to safeguard what matters most. Sometimes it looks like attention to detail that no one else would consider important. The way a chair is pulled out for you, the way an umbrella is held a little too carefully, the way a jacket is offered before the cold even brushes your skin. These aren't just courtesies, they carry a protective undertone, a message woven into every gesture that says, I want you to be safe, comfortable, untouched by harm. It isn't about ownership, but about presence. The kind of presence that quietly declares, I'm here for you, and I don't want anyone else to take my place. Psychologically, this behavior stems from a mix of attachment and investment. When someone feels strongly connected, their brain registers you as a high-value part of their world. This naturally triggers protective instincts, often rooted in evolutionary psychology. Humans, like many other beings, are wired to guard what they perceive as essential to their survival and happiness. In modern times, this doesn't translate to overt battles or aggressive displays, but to subtler, quieter forms of watchfulness, a shift in posture, a protective tone, or even the way someone introduces you in conversation can all carry shades of this silent possessiveness. There's also an emotional side to it. When someone feels deeply for you, they want to create a bubble where you feel secure. This is why subtle acts of possessiveness often blend with care. Carrying something heavy for you, walking on the side of traffic, keeping track of your preferences without you having to repeat them. It isn't about limiting your freedom. It's about ensuring that within their reach, you never have to feel unguarded. It's an unspoken way of saying, I want to be the one you can rely on, even in the smallest moments. At times, it can be as simple as body language, the way a hand rests lightly at the small of your back while moving through a crowded space, or how a protective glance flickers when someone else draws near. These signs are fleeting, often dismissed by outsiders, but they are heavy with meaning. They reveal the tension between desire and restraint, the longing to claim, but the respect to hold back. What makes this subtle possessiveness so powerful is that it doesn't need words or explanations. It isn't a demand, it isn't a rule, it isn't an ultimatum. It is a quiet offering of presence, a reminder that in a chaotic world, someone is always choosing to stand close, to watch over, to silently declare, you are mine, not because I say it, but because I show it in every little thing I do. It often slips out in the most ordinary of moments, disguised as casual talk, yet carrying a weight that ordinary words do not. A weekend plan spoken out loud, a mention of a trip yet to happen, a simple phrase like, next time we should. These are fragments of the future, and they are not random. They are quiet projections, small attempts to weave you into the fabric of what hasn't even unfolded yet. When someone is deeply drawn to you, they don't just live in the present moment with you, they begin to imagine you in the moments that haven't arrived. And those imaginings escape into conversation without them even realizing it. At first, it may sound simple, even lighthearted. Talk of where to eat next week, a movie that should be watched together, a place that would be fun to visit. But underneath, the psychology is profound. The human brain does not naturally invest energy into including people in its imagined future unless it feels that they belong there. When someone is captivated, their mind automatically extends you forward in time, creating a storyline in which you are a consistent character. This is not about promises or declarations. It's about an inner certainty that says, I can already see you with me tomorrow and the day after that. Sometimes it comes in bigger visions, disguised in playful scenarios. A dream of traveling somewhere far away, a joke about what kind of home would suit the two of you, a remark about how you'd react to a situation years from now. Though wrapped in humor or casualness, these comments reveal a subconscious merging of timelines. It is as though their imagination cannot run without pulling you along, as though the future feels incomplete if it does not include you. From a psychological lens, this happens because attraction heightens emotional investment. When someone feels strongly, their brain rewards them with dopamine when thinking about the person, making those thoughts addictive. Projecting into the future then becomes a way of sustaining that feeling, a way of keeping the emotional high alive. Every imagined plan reinforces the bond, even if the plan never materializes, because it creates a sense of continuity, an unspoken thread tying today to tomorrow. You may notice that these projections are often specific. It isn't just someday or maybe. It's a particular restaurant, a particular movie, a particular holiday. Specificity makes it real in the mind, as if rehearsing a script before it's lived. And the more these little fragments accumulate, the more you begin to feel the pattern, that this is not someone who sees you as fleeting, but as a presence they expect to remain. What makes it so powerful is how naturally it happens. They may not even realize the depth of what they're revealing. To them, it's just conversation. But to you, it can be felt as something deeper, an invitation into a tomorrow that hasn't yet been written, a quiet confession that says, I don't just want you here now. I want you here then, and later, and further still. There is a kind of hunger that doesn't always show itself in obvious ways, but it lingers in the smallest exchanges, hidden in the spaces between words and reactions. It is the craving for validation, the quiet search for reassurance that what they feel is not one-sided, that the connection they sense is real and mutual. When someone is deeply invested, their attention becomes tethered to your responses. A smile can lift them higher than they expected, while a moment of indifference can leave them unsettled. Every gesture, every nod, every word you give becomes a silent measure of where they stand with you. It often shows in the way their eyes flicker toward you after they've said something, waiting for your reaction. The joke may be funny to others, but your laughter is the only one that matters. A story may be told to a group, but your approval is the only reward truly sought. It's in the subtle glances, the quick checks to see if you're listening, the way they pause to make sure your attention hasn't drifted away. Each reaction you offer becomes a thread, and they are constantly weaving those threads into a fabric of assurance. Psychologically, this comes from the human need for recognition, amplified by attraction. When someone cares deeply, their self-esteem becomes linked to the way you perceive them. The brain, in its vulnerability, seeks constant feedback. Did you notice me? Did you enjoy what I shared? Did I make you feel something? This isn't weakness, it's a natural consequence of emotional investment. The higher the stakes of affection, the stronger the desire for validation. It is the subconscious way of asking, do I matter to you as much as you matter to me? Sometimes it comes disguised in small questions. Did you like that? Was that okay? Or even, what do you think? Each one seems ordinary, but beneath it lies a deeper pull. They aren't just asking for your opinion, they are asking for affirmation, and when you give it, through a word, a smile, or even a simple nod, it's stored like a treasure tucked away as proof that the bond is alive and strong. Even silence can become a test. If you hesitate before responding, if your attention slips for just a second, it may stir a wave of uncertainty inside them. That is how delicate this need for validation can be. Yet it is also what makes it so telling. Because when someone is unaffected, they don't seek it. They don't need your laughter, your approval, or your acknowledgement to feel secure. But when they are deeply attached, your smallest gestures can alter the way their entire day feels. What makes this so profound is that it transforms ordinary interactions into moments heavy with meaning. A look, a laugh, a word, things you may not even think twice about, become their quiet anchors. They measure themselves through the way you reflect them, and in doing so, they reveal the depth of their feelings without ever saying it aloud. This constant seeking is not a demand, it is a confession, a soft, unspoken plea that says, "Tell me I matter to you because you already matter so much to me." When all of these pieces come together, the mirroring, the focus, the playful boundary, testing, the protective gestures, the visions of tomorrow, and the quiet hunger for your approval, it paints a picture that words alone could never capture. These aren't rehearsed moves or carefully designed strategies. They are the slips of the subconscious, the ways emotion leaks out when it becomes too strong to contain. You don't need grand confessions or dramatic declarations to know when someone is captivated, because the truth reveals itself in the smallest patterns, in the ways they move, watch, speak, and respond around you. The mind cannot hide what the heart is already overflowing with. And once you learn to recognize these quiet signals, you'll never again mistake casual interest for genuine devotion, because the difference is written in every subtle act, every glance, every unspoken word that says louder than any voice could, "I'm crazy about you."